Good evening, welcome, folks. I am Brian, and you are joining me and the rest of the crew as we continue to review and to preview the all of the divisions leading into the new season. It is time for the NFC East to get the critical gaze of some of our resident experts in the crew. And they're feeling a lot better about this episode, ladies and gents, because we've went from having one homer in the audience to having three. So John's going to be doing his best with a team that's not his own, but we've got three other crew members who will be getting no such sympathy as we expect nothing but the very, very best. So we're going to be looking into each of these teams. What have they been up to in the off-season? How did they get on in the draft? What do they need to do to succeed this year? What are some of those tasty fixtures that we have got to look forward to? And as we are making a feature of in these shows, who can these teams look to crush it for them this season? Well, with no further ado, folks, I'm going to rip the plaster off quickly, and we're going to get Johnny's moment in the sun, and then he can mop his fevered brow and not have to think about the one, the only Washington Commanders. John, how are you doing, mate? Are you ready to tell me about all things Commander?
I think so.
Let's kick us off, mate. So what have the Commanders been up to in the off-season? What are the big ads? What are the big drops? What are the big change? Now, to be fair, the Commanders have seen one pretty blockbuster change, and it's not somebody who will ever grace a playing field. So what's the big news with the Commanders this year?
I think the big news was obviously, and it was a big sigh of relief for a lot of the NFL fans. Were actually quite happy for them. Obviously, not their divisional rivals, but Schneider cutting ties. I think that was a good thing for the whole NFL, just in general. I think a lot of people were happy to see them get a new owner. So
I'm reasonably convinced that as soon as that was confirmed, there were like bells tolling throughout the streets of Washington, and like folk, ding dong, the witch is gone. So yeah, what about the things that are not that the ownership doesn't have an impact on the field, but what about the things that are going to have any direct impact on the field? What have been the big moves that they've been making this year?
In free agency, they signed Darian Payne, $60 million guaranteed. So nice little payday there. So for him, they also picked up, I think it's Jacoby Brissett as well. I think they brought him in.
Should be one in my heart. Just not in my team sheet.
Yeah, and Andrew Wiley from the Chiefs as well, and Nick Gates from the Giants. So another thing to look at is Chase Young as well. He's 2 years since his injury from ACL, so and he's in his contract year, so it's going to be a big year for him, I think, as well.
Okay, right. So bit of action, bit of movement. Now, obviously, the big questions with the Commanders this year in terms of the playing side of it is the quarterback question. I mean, they brought in Jacoby. They brought in Jacoby to give them that nice, safe pair of hands. Sam Howell, is he going to make the step? All the rest of it. There's a lot to talk about there. I'm getting ahead of myself. What about their draft? I've done it twice now in two shows, guys, where I can't follow a very simple script, which is quite embarrassing. What about the draft, mate? How did the Commanders crack on in the draft this year?
Believe it or not, I've not even got anything in how they drafted. To be honest, I'll need to actually check that.
Big pickups for them. So obviously the big ones that we had with the Commanders, they grabbed Emmanuel Forbes at 16. So pardon me as I die in the corner. So they went to kind of try and grab a tackle, but they really couldn't get one because we all know how the draft went, and we've seen all the top tackle prospects went early before the Commanders got on the board. So they got a corner out of Mississippi State. They added onto it. They had Jatavius Martin in their defensive back at Illinois, and I'm trying to look at something else. They added at guard, they added at O-line, they added another defensive end, sorry, and then it gets into their kind of depth picks. From looking at it, it looks like they have kind of went in and went for value. Most people I think looked at it, but that middle bit of the draft where they went for a guard, they went for their line. Are they trying to give Sam Howell the protection that he needs to succeed?
Yeah. I think like on previous podcasts, I've talked about it. Like the game's really won in the trenches. If you've got like a good O line or a good D line, then you've got a good chance of winning any game. To be honest, I think and with such a young quarterback coming in and Sam Howell second season, it'll be interesting to see how the offensive line can protect him. And they've obviously tried to address that within the draft. That they obviously didn't like the players that they've got, and they've obviously brought a few players in free agency as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs. I think like there's a lot of question marks around a lot of the second year quarterbacks this year, and somehow will be one of them.
Right, okay. Well, last year they went 8-1. I love a team that gathers a tie. Love it. Love a tie in the NFL. What did it? And okay, to be fair, they came. I think most people would say that the Commanders didn't play amazing football last year, but they came in at 500, which is always respectable. It's a tough league. There's no easy games and all the rest of it. We know the cliches. What do the Commanders need this year to really help them improve, to help them kick on and try and not just be a 500 football team?
I think they really need their offense to start clicking quite quick. They've obviously got the likes of Brian Johnson Jr. at running back, as well as one of their draft picks from last year who played fairly well, Johan Dotson, the wide receiver. So couple of good pickups there. So, and as already mentioned, like Chase Young, in a contract year, coming back from a year on from his injury, and when it's an ACL, it usually takes a full year to recover.
Yeah.
As such, before they get up to that standard that he's seen, and we've got to admit, when he first came into the league, he was a dominant player within the NFL. So it'd be nice, like, even though he's against like your team, you always like to see these players come back and stuff, and the best against the best.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one of the reasons we all love the league. It's one of the reasons we all love the game, because it's you've only got 32 teams, and they are the best at the job they're doing. So yeah, we like to see elite players playing. Right. Okay. So looking at the schedule for the Commanders, what are the big games that you look at and you go, that's going to be tasty. That's going to be one to go out of your way and watch.
I think like their schedule it's really tough to open up with. They've got 3 AFC North teams. Not got their exact schedule in front of me, but I'll just have a quick.
I think when we look around it, they're actually some of them. It'll be interesting to see how some of them they're starting out with the Cards, which, to be fair, probably about as gentle a start to the year as you're likely to get in the league playing the Cardinals. But after that, they're then going to need to deal with the Broncos. They've got the Bills, the Eagles. That's going to be a wee tougher, potentially 3 tough games. Depends how the changes in Denver are going.
Yeah. I've just pulled up here, Brian. So outside of the division, they've got the Bills, the 49ers, the Rams, and the Seahawks are probably debatable games for them outside the division.
Yeah. The Rams will be interesting. Rams 17th of December. Who will it be? Which Rams team are they going to play? I mean, we've seen such a Jekyll and Hyde Rams. That could be an absolute hiding for either team.
Yeah,
easily. Or Could be a
They
total
finished the season with Jets, 49ers, Cowboys. That's not a good finish to the season.
Yeah. The one there that's going to be the killer is going to be that Jets Christmas Eve game. They can walk away for that with a win, bit of a boost, bit of a high. Maybe it gives them the impetus to go on and face what are likely to be two very, very tough teams.
Yeah, if they beat the Jets on Christmas Eve, they'll go 1-16.
There we go. It's we had optimistic Dan for like a whole 3 seconds in another episode, folks.
We're optimistic about the right team this time. That's the difference.
I think another big game is obviously they're playing on Thanksgiving as well against Dan's Cowboys. So I think if they can win that game, but probably not. But...
I feel discontent with that statement. I feel that there's a member of the crew doesn't feel that outcome's likely, but he'll get his chance.
I think there's 4 other members of the crew who don't think there's a chance of that happening as well.
Yeah, I'm always able to just wait. Jacoby will be in by that point, and he'll dice you up. Right, okay. Let's round off all things Washington. Who is the man on the Commanders who will take command and who will crush it this year? Who have you got?
I'm going to go Chase Young to make an impact and to come back from his injury and absolutely crush it for them. So,
he's a special player, a special head of hair. He's a fantastic head of hair, Chase Young, and he's frighteningly fast. Right, okay. Thank you very much, sir. Right, we're gonna move on, and you know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to find out if we're all still them boys. It is time for America's team to enter the arena. Dan, it is your moment in the sun. It is your moment in the spotlight. This is where I had to trim back the notes that he was going to bring here, folks. He was going to bring in like a Bible to read to us about. He's got pages and pages. But we'll keep him on point and we'll keep him brief. Dan, kick me off with your off season, mate. What have been the big comings and goings in Dallas?
So we've spoken in previous episodes about teams being active in the off-season.
Yes,
he's been active compared to the Cowboys. We can run through this. Right, I'm going to run through this very quickly because there's a lot, right? And I've only listed the players that are actually key players that have either left or came. I've not listed everybody. So leaving, I'll run through it quickly. Ezekiel Elliott, Jason Peters, Anthony Brown, Connor McGovern, Brett Maher, Dalton Schultz, Anthony Barr, Jake McQuaid, long snapper, and Noah Brown all left. That's a lot of players.
That's a lot of turnover.
So considering you think about it, Zeke was a starter, Jason Peters came in and out, Connor McGovern was a starter, Brett Maher obviously a kicker, Dalton Schultz was a starting tight end, Anthony Barr filled in at linebacker now and again, long snapper, you only have one of them, so he's a starter. So there's a lot of players that made an impact last season that have went out the door, but we see this every year in free agency with the Cowboys where Jerry's not afraid to lose players.
And that's, obviously the big one with the Cowboys in terms of the headlines was Zeke. You know what I mean? Zeke was allowed to walk away. As a fan, are you bothered?
No, I texted my dad, when we lost that playoff game, I texted my dad and said, that's Zeke's last game for us. He just knew that his time was up. And for someone who was such an impact 3-down running back, you knew last year with Tony Ballard coming through, Zeke became your goal line or your 3-1, 3-2, or even going for the 4th down running back. It wasn't no longer your impact running back. It was your guy that will get you over the line. And he just knew that his time was up. And we've obviously discussed all about running backs over in previous pods, but it shows you that someone like him has not been picked up, even at any market price. He's still looking for a team. So it kind of shows you where he's currently at now.
Yeah, it's the big interest one. We all know, we're not going to talk about it because we've done it before.
Yeah.
But we all know how flat the running back market is. But does he want too much, or the team's just no fancy him? But it's one I suppose it will shake out as we get towards the tail end of the offseason. Yeah,
he'll be one of those players that when somebody, a starting running back, picks up an injury in the first quarter of the season, he'll be one of the first doors that people come off.
Zeke's phone will ring. Zeke's phone will ring and he'll put down his bowl of cereal. I love that picture. It's one of the best pictures the NFL's ever produced. What about your draft, mate? Well, how did you rank the Cowboys draft this year?
Yeah. So before we get to the draft, I'm not talking about players coming in.
Oh, that's geez, aye. The list of out was so long.
Yes. So coming in, Brandon Cooks.
Yes.
I think that's a good pickup. I was hoping for D-Hop, but we'll take Cooks. I mean, I think he'll complement
underrated player.
CD very well. I think he'll give us a good deep threat. Paid him 20 million over 2 years. Quick stat about him.
Go for
his
it.
last 8 seasons, he's had 6 1,000-yard plus games. Games. That's great.
1,000-yard game. What a player.
There's only 2 other players in the NFL that have had 6,000 plus yard seasons in the last 8 years. Mike Evans has done 8 out of 8, and Travis Kelce's done 7 out of 8. So he can pick up the yards.
He's a player that's he's a player that's been underrated because he's played in Houston for so long.
Yeah.
End of the day, he played a run of terrible Texans teams, and that coloured, I think, a lot of people's opinions of him, unfortunately.
Yeah,
a bit of success for yourself.
He's at the Texans with not a very good quarterback, but he was still putting up over 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
Run through quickly the other ones. Stephon Gilmore, we'll talk about him a bit more in a wee while. Chuma Edoga, Trent Seeger's another long snapper picked up for the Vegas, and Ronald Jones, who I don't think he much of the ball this year, to be honest with you. But he's there. He's in the running back room, and he fills a space.
Listen, I'm going to step in and just defend the good name of Rojo, because I know Kev's a very proud Rojo fantasy owner.
I am.
He will not have the good name of Rojo besmirched. And if anybody wants to trade for Rojo, Kev will reluctantly listen to offers.
It'll have to be a good offer.
Re-signed free agents: Jonathan Hankins, Dante Fowler, Cooper Rush, CJ Goodwin, Leighton Van Der Esch, Donovan Wilson, and Terence Steele. They were all free agents, and we've re-signed all them. So all good players to hold on to.
Busy then. Been a bit busy.
Very. And that's just the players.
Right.
Not even got to the coaches or the draft.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into your draft.
Go for it. Right.
Lot of action in your pre-season. How did you do in your draft, Pat?
I was very happy with the draft. First round pick, I was surprised where we went Mazzie Smith.
Mm-hmm.
But I once I read more into him, I wasn't much in pre-draft. I think he's going to be a great pick up. The Cowboys love a first round draft pick in either the O-line or the D-line. So Mazzie Smith didn't surprise me that we went in that position. Just wasn't expecting to be him. Then we went with Luke Schoonmaker in the second to pick up a tight end. Maybe a bit of a reach, but it was a problem position for us going into this season. We've obviously got Jake Ferguson there. Mm-hmm. We like our tight ends. A lot of 2 tight end sets in the Cowboys offense. So, I mean, he'll come in. We'll see how he does. But he's... I was hoping to maybe pick up somebody like Kincaid or... It was Michael Mayer. Was kind of what I was hoping, but by the time it came to us, they were both already gone. So I think it should make him his 3rd rated tight end, but I think we maybe reached a wee bit in terms of when we picked him. I think that was probably because we thought if we didn't take him, we were kind of then struggling in terms of quality of tight ends in the draft.
To be fair, wait and see. I never ever, as we've discussed in previous episodes, never judge rookie tight ends in the first couple of years. Very tricky position. Takes a long time to get your head around it. But I think most people agree that he was maybe a wee bit of a reach.
Yeah, a couple of players that we picked up that might not make a massive impact straight away. Junior Feheko, slot receiver, he might see a wee bit of action in different plays. Damarian Overshot as a linebacker, again, might not see him straight away. Eric Scott Jr., who played probably a lot more special teams for the first wee while. And then obviously everybody's favourite story of the draft, Deuce Vaughn.
Yes.
I mean, going back to we talked on previous pod about a chain in his size, right? Deuce Vaughn is 5'5" and 12.5 stone.
Yep. That is genuinely weirder than me.
He is genuinely a child.
It's the great, for anybody that's not seen the clip that's been doing the rounds on Twitter and social and the rest of Deuce Vaughn doing some drills at practice, and they're all like with the taglines of, how lovely, one of the coaches brought their son, because he does look like a wee boy.
He literally did bring his son. I wanted a scout, not a coach, but anyway. It's like that cartoon when you see the wee player running through somebody's legs. That's what's going to happen.
Linebackers are going to try and catch him and going to miss as he just slides straight under them.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited by Deuce Fun, how much ball he'll see. I think he's been doing a wee bit of working out at receiver as well. So, I think it'll be good for us. Maybe not so much this season, but I think good prospect anyway. So, very happy with the draft. Maybe a couple of picks maybe would have changed, maybe a wee bit of reach, but overall, pretty happy with it.
But all told a happy fan, and that's always the trickiest people to please.
Yes.
Right, okay. Looking, so I've just lost it. I'm just trying to find what your record was last year. So yes, it was a good year actually for yourselves. 12-5 season, but never made the big dance, and that's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
What do you see as the big things the Cowboys need to do this year to take a step to go on to make it better?
Yep, I think one of the changes we need to make has already happened, and I was against it originally when it happened, but I'm now coming around to it, and that's Kellen Moore going. I thought Kellen Moore would be our head coach one day, but him moving, he's now at the Chargers, and Mike McCarthy's going to take over the play calling, which he's obviously done it before. He's done it at the Packers very successfully. So I think we'll see how that goes. And we brought in Brian Schottenheimer as a new OC, so I expect a lot more running as well. So that was an improvement already that's happened. Going into next season, we need to turnovers, or interceptions specifically. We need to cut interceptions. And we already know we already know Dak's been misquoted about having less than 10 interceptions. That's not what he said. But stats for last year, we had 18 interceptions last year, which was 30th in the NFL in terms of interceptions given up. Only the Texans and the Colts were worse than us last year. Yeah.
A lot of interceptions, man.
Yeah. A lot of passes, though, remember? A lot of passes.
That sounds like excuses, folks. That sounds like excuses. It wasn't my fault. A big boy did it and ran away with the ball into the end zone.
That's why Kellen Moore's gone. Another thing we need to improve on, and this does my head in every year with the Cowboys, and I don't know how much you watch the Cowboys and how much you will actually notice this. We give away a ridiculous amount of stupid penalties, right? At key times as well. It's not just a daft or false start here or whatever here. We just give away stupid penalties. So last year we were 24th overall for penalties, 46 for defensive holding, and 31st for unnecessary roughness. Why? It's just stupid. You're giving up, you get late hits or just doing stuff, face mask, stuff that you shouldn't be doing at key times, and defensive holding one does my head in. I mean, just if a guy's going to beat you, it depends on the situation. Some of them are going to give up as a tactical foul, but when it's like 40 yards away from your end zone and it's a 5-yard pass, just why are you grabbing the guy? Stupid penalties at stupid times we need to improve on as well.
What do you put that down to, Dan? Because McCarthy's an experienced coach.
But it's not. This isn't just a McCarthy thing. This has been going for since Garrett was here. As a Cowboys fan for watching this for the last 5-10 years, we're always been giving away stupid penalties. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. It's just stupid decision making at certain times, and I think, it's not as if it's major daft penalties. It's like defensive holding, unnecessary roughness, could be anything, obviously, but it's just we give away a false start. You're like, we're going for it in 4th and 1, and we false start. You're just like,
kills the momentum, swings games.
Just think things like stupid penalties like that. It's never massive penalties are costing you a lot of yards. It's just these stupid penalties at stupid times. You know what I mean, like. Yeah, that's my rant over for that.
It's the cerebral part of the game, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's not, the NFL's all about physicality and what have you, but at the end of the day, you need to be switched on upstairs to not do things like that and keep your team flowing.
Yeah.
Right, okay, mate. Well, looking at your year ahead, what are your big games? What are the big ones that you are champing at the bit? You cannot wait for them.
Yeah, so I've looked, again, very similar to what I talked about previously about the Patriots. I went the first 6 games. Giants, Jets, Cardinals, Patriots, 49ers, Chargers. That's the first 6 games. I've got us coming out of that at least 5-1, which would be a great start with playing the Giants, obviously, divisional, the 49ers and the Chargers. We don't know what's going to happen with the 49ers. Chargers, obviously, we heard, but good team this year. Mm-hmm. I've got us coming out of that at 5-1 as a good start. But from the NFC East perspective, something that always comes down to in this division is how you finish the season.
Mm-hmm.
It's always so tight, and what comes down to our last 3 games are Dolphins, Lions, Washington. That could be massive for us because that's not the hardest run-in of the last 3 games. Obviously, Dolphins, we spoke about how are they going to do. But if you were to offer me that as your last 3 games, I would have taken it.
It is interesting because, particularly, as I say, there's a lot of teams there who are a bit like we've mentioned before. They're Jekyll and Hyde teams. You know what I mean? The Dolphins can either completely blow you away or not really turn up. The Lions went from being a bit of a laughing stock a couple of years ago to being a real up-and-coming team. Yeah. And then you look at your front end of the season, you say 49ers seemingly don't need quarterbacks to win games and get championship games. So but how long can you maintain that? How long can you keep stuff like that going? Which is why we love the game. Right, okay. Let's wind up the Cowboys. I'm sorry, mate. I know we could have a whole show on the Cowboys and you wouldn't be satisfied. Who is your man? Who is the one who's got to step up? Who is going to crush it for the Cowboys this year?
So I'm not going to go obvious because there's so many obvious players that I could pick that, I mean, on both sides of the ball. But I'm going to go with someone who I think will be key to us this year. That playing in any other team, I think it would be, well, he's going to be a key player, and it's Stephon Gilmore. I think adding him in that secondary is going to be huge. Teams last season didn't want to throw to Trayvon Diggs. Now they're thinking, right, we're not going to throw to Trayvon Diggs, but we now need to throw to Stephon Gilmore. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where that. So I think he could be key for us in that, and can maybe not singly doing something on his own, but as part of that defensive unit and just having that second elite cornerback on the other side of the field will give us a great balance, and it will make teams have to think a lot about what they're doing.
Nice. Right, okay. Well, we are going to leave the fine city of Dallas, and it is time to fly, Eagles, fly. It has to be as those like daft songs go. Its beauty is in its simplicity. We are going to make our way to Philadelphia. We are going to be talking about the Eagles. Kev, how you doing, mate? Tell me, you went so close. What have the Eagles been doing in the off-season? It literally is one more step. What have the Eagles been doing this off-season, mate?
Yeah, it still hurts to think about it, Brian. Thanks for bringing it up. Well, the first thing we've done, I think the biggest piece of business we've done in the off-season there was giving Hurts his new deal. Tied him down as the franchise quarterback on a massive, $255 million 5-year contract. And then we've got to work on trying to retain as much of the key pieces of the side as we could. So re-signed Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, Boston Scott, and then obviously added a few more as well. We've got DeAndre Swift for Detroit. We got Rashad Penny for the Seahawks, Marcus Mariota for the Falcons, and added a wee bit more depth to our wide receiver room with Zacchaeus for the Falcons as well. And then outbound, biggest outgoings at the Eagles this off-season was we lost both our coordinators to head coach gigs elsewhere. So Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon left to the Colts and the Cardinals.
So this is the big bit where I suppose it's the curse of your success.
Yeah,
when you're a team that does so well, that's what happens. Is that thing as a fan that's maybe keeping you up at night, giving you the concern that you're losing those coaching pieces?
I don't think that's the first thing on your mind. I think the first thing on your mind is the players. You just want to make sure you keep the players. But then obviously, you know, when the coordinators go and you really think about it, how much of the success of the team is down to, you know, the job those guys are doing. And I suppose we'll not know that until this season kicks off and we see what sort of shape we're in with the new guys. So the promoted coaches to the coordinator roles, it's Brian Johnson's the new offensive coordinator, and Sean Desai the new defensive coordinator.
They both came up from inside.
They have. So Sirianni talked about them both, said that they're both great guys. He's really pleased with them. They deserve their chance, etc. So We'll see how they do. And then what else do we have on the playing side? We let go of a few guys to free up some space. So Gardner Minshew's gone, Miles Sanders is gone, and a few other bits and pieces.
Losing Minshew, losing that
I know.
glorious. I don't know if it's just his hair, the attitude, everything. Minshew mania. I was such a believer. I want there to be more Minshew mania in my life.
He'll always be kicking about somewhere. He'll always get a gig somewhere.
Couple of weeks in Indy, to be fair. So there's been a lot of movement. There's been a lot of things happening. But as you say, it's been for the Eagles. It's been about trying to retain as many of the pieces as they can get away with retaining. What about your draft? What were your big moves in the draft that leave you hopefully thinking that you're adding the pieces that are going to help take you the next step?
Well, Howie Roseman's done it again. I think everybody pretty much feels that it was an A draft. Widely received as an A draft. The biggest thing was getting the Georgia pair in the first round. Jalen Carter, a defensive tackle, and
okay, I'm going to interrupt you. Are you trying to tell me that the Eagles drafted some players out of Georgia?
Yeah.
I feel this news of this magnitude should not be. I can't believe we're breaking it.
Aye. We only added another 3, just the 3 of them.
You like.
Yeah, well, it's if it's working, just more of the same.
Yeah.
So Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith both came to us in the first round. So both adding to our defence, and then we picked up offensive lineman from Alabama, Tyler Steen, and that was in the third round at 65th pick. And then the very next pick, 66, we had Sidney Brown, the defensive back for Illinois. And then just in the later round, 4th, we added Keely Ringo to Georgia. That's the other Georgia player we got. Yeah. So another big defensive back. And then we got Tanner McKee in the 6th, quarterback, a late pickup for Stanford. And then Moro Ojomo, the defensive tackle for Texas in the 7th. So, I think much of our success has been, our lines and our defence. That's what took us all the way to the bowl last year. And I think overall, as I said, that draft couldn't have gone much better, if any.
You think, surely, so many of the owners and all the rest around the league must just hate drafting against Howie. They must. It's the consistency with which you draft so well. You're like, gotta just do one. Gotta have an off year. Gotta have a year of your crap.
I think what was it? How did they pull off Jalen Carter at number 9 overall?
He slid due to red flags.
Right. Okay.
He was expected. He was coming out of college. He was expected to be the number 1 prospect in the draft coming out of college, and then there was a lot of red flags about behaviour and a few other issues that teams then went maybe not.
Yeah, but am I right? It was 9, I think. But I think
people would expect him to slide a lot further than that.
Yeah. I think did we not trade a pick to move up to get him though? I think we gave up a 4th rounder or something.
The first round anyway.
I think I think there's. I was reading something about us giving up a 4th round pick, but I couldn't quite follow it.
I don't remember he's trading up in the draft. Maybe I've not remembered, but
certainly, I can't quite remember either. But he is certainly one where, as Dan says, the mentality side of it was what was putting teams off. I don't think many teams doubt his promise, but there were those concerns. And it's why a lot of people.
He turned up on his pro day and he was so sluggish and he looked very unfit and overweight on his pro day, and I think that's what put a lot of teams off. It was like, well, you're number 1 prospect in this draft. What is the state you are about your pro day? I think that put a lot of teams off.
Yeah. Well, the proof will be in the pudding, I suppose. We'll see if Philadelphia is the right place to really get the most out of them. Right, so it's a bit of a tricky question, this one, to ask an Eagles fan. How would you do better next year? What do you see as the thing that the Eagles need to do? Is it the case of just do what you did last year, do the same again, or is there something that you look at and you go, do you know what? No, there is room for improvement there, and we could have been better.
I mean, I think in my prep, I was looking areas to improve. Not a lot, there's nothing, not one area that's glaringly obvious that we need to improve on. But it is, if you want to be the very best, if you want to be getting rings, then you've got to do everything well consistently. So I think maybe consistency is the key. Halftime in the Super Bowl last year, we were looking pretty good, and we just couldn't keep it going for the third and fourth quarters. So I think maybe the longer that you play at that elite level, the longer you keep winning games, then possibly the more consistent you become. So I think it's just have another really good, strong season, and the confidence that comes with that. Hopefully, it will carry us just that wee bit further this year.
Keep pushing Jalen Hurts from 4th and 1.
Did they change that rule? They're talking about changing it. Did they change it?
No, they never changed it.
Didn't. They said that it was the hot ticket that they were going to change it, and they did not. There's a lot of cameras that reckon you'll get one more year of it, then it'll get binned.
I think it's one of those plays that technically as a penalty, it's just never ever called, I think.
No, honestly, I'm amazed that more teams don't do it. Like, it's not like we're not talking like some really fancy trick play here. We're talking about everybody grab them and
shove them.
Ain't rocket science, team.
I know. You think it's probably the first move ever invented in NFL, isn't it?
Exactly.
The oldest play in the book.
Looking at your season, looking at your year ahead, mate. What are the big games that have got you interested in? They need to be regular season games. I'm not having any of this. We're looking forward to the Super Bowl.
No, listen, I wouldn't jinx it like that. Definitely not. Again, I just want to talk about the strength of schedule, because I know we talked about it before in the previous pod with the Dolphins, and we were talking about different ways to look at it. So. Based on the records of the teams we're facing last season, we've got the hardest strength of schedule in the league. The opponents' records last year were .566, which is the highest out of any team in the league this year. The only other team that had that are facing a record of above .55 is the Dolphins. And I talked about how the bookies have got them as third hardest schedule, but they're the second hardest based on this kind of metric. So it's a really, really tough schedule. We've got 7 of our 8 home games this season. We're going to be facing teams with a winning record last year. 6 of those 7 teams with winning records were all in the playoffs. The only one that we're facing that didn't make the playoffs with a winning record was Washington. Or at least a 500. They had a 500.
I was going to come in and say that is that a consequence of the fact that your division last year everybody was 500 or better. But you're playing that volume of playoff teams. That's
6 out of 8 home games are against playoff teams for last season. And what do we have? 10 games in total out of our 17 games this year will be against playoff teams for last year.
Well,
10 out of the 17. So that's the kind of the kind of strength of schedule that we're up against. So they're all big games, but for me, first and foremost, I'm looking forward to the first game at New England. But for me, the most interesting part of the season for us is going to be where do we start? It's week 11. So we're at Arrowhead in week 11. Then we play the Bills week 12.
Yeah.
We play the 49ers week 13.
Ooh.
And then Dallas week 14 in Dallas.
That's a run.
Tough stretch.
So those 4 weeks, I really can't wait to that part of the season. I'm just buzzing to watch the games back to back to back. But by then we'll know. Obviously, we'll have a fair idea of whether we're going to make it to the playoffs or no. So yeah, that's the ones to look out for me. Weeks 11 through 14. I think from week 9 through to week 14. I think again we play like 7 6 or 7 teams who were in the playoffs last year.
Kev, can I just jump in for a wee second? See, you're talking about, what was that, week 10, you said, the Chiefs? 10,
No,
11.
week 11.
Week
Week
10,
11. We're by week 10, I think.
Week
Yeah,
10, well,
against Cowboys.
is it? So, well, you get a bye week, but you've got the Cowboys,
Aye.
the game before
Yeah.
that as well. So you've got Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, 49ers, Cowboys.
Aye, there you go. Aye, and then I think that's where I think it's like 6 or 7 game weeks in a row we're playing playoff teams for last season. It's incredible. But hey, if you want to win it, you got to beat them all. So
Cost of success.
Exactly
those are the games you want to watch. Those are the games you want to watch, and that's got me excited.
Well, I was very critical last year. You know very well, Kev. I thought the Eagles had a relatively easy run it, but this is what you get the other side of it, where there's no such thing as an easy playoff team. We can debate, the strength of the NFC, the AFC, all we want, but if a team's made the playoffs, it's made it on merit. There's very, very few times where bad teams make the playoffs and they get found out in the playoffs instantly when they do. So when you're facing that many playoff teams, it is a big, tough ask. Right, okay, mate, let's round this one out. Who is going to be the man to crush it for Philadelphia this year? Who are you pinning your hopes and dreams on?
I'm going to go for a guy that I'm looking to take his game to the next level and just add a slightly different dimension to our attack. That's going to be Dallas Goedert.
Ooh.
Goedert has apparently been putting in a ton of work with the wide receivers. He's looking to try and create better separation and running routes, and if he can add that little bit extra to his game on the offense, that we already have weapons. We've got a massive committee of running backs. We've got 2 top wide receivers. We've got a quarterback who is getting better and better, and we've got all those pieces. I think Goddard, he's a good tight end, but I think if he can become an elite tight end, then it will give us just that wee bit more. Maybe the one bit that we need to go all the way.
Oh well, I've never seen that one coming, mate. You've genuinely surprised me in every possible way, mate. Okay, right. Well, it is time to go from a team that we're doing well to a team that hopes to stand on the shoulders of giants. Oh my God, to New York. There you go. See, this is why you have me on this show, guys. Right, so we are now going to go to New York, and we're going to go to Gav, and he is going to tell us all about why this is the year that it is the Giants' year. So, kick me off, mate. What have you worked in the off season?
Oh, well, I'm going to be probably continuing a boring theme and wax lyrical about the great work by our GM, Bill Sean, because I've got to tell you, it's not been a big off-season for headlines in terms of who's coming in, the big free agent acquisitions. But there's been a lot of work in terms of contracts and re-signing the key pieces here. So I think obviously in terms of the big names, we've had Saquon re-signed, admittedly only to a 1-year deal at the moment, so there's a bit of a prove it element there. Daniel Jones is back, which is on a 4-year deal, but it's been pretty much touted as a 2-year deal. There's quite a nice out after the second year. I think there's only a $9 million hit for the Giants. So I think there is a question mark about some of your key offensive pieces, who they really want to keep in the long term. So not quite a prove it deal for Daniel Jones, but I think there is certainly a bit of motivation for him to go out and do well this year. And then we've had the other big pieces. So Andrew Thomas, the left tackle, really coming into his own. He's now getting the long-term money. Dexter Lawrence again getting re-signed. And beyond that, we're getting a very crowded wide receiver room. So
I was hoping you'd mention this.
Not necessarily the big names, I've got to say, but we've got Darius Slayton's back, Sterling Shepard's back. We've added in Cole Beasley, Jamison Crowder, Paris Campbell, a couple other moves in the draft we'll talk about in a moment. But I think that's obviously been a big part and a big question mark over Daniel Jones and the Giants' overall offensive success. So I think they're still feeling things out a lot at the wide receiver position. And we'll maybe talk about that a bit more in a moment. I guess probably the biggest free agent, I say free agent, is actually a trade acquisition was Dan Waller, tight end from the Raiders.
Yeah.
So he's someone that's had a couple of 1,100-yard seasons in the past. Couple of question marks over his fitness recently, but the signs coming out of training camp are really positive right now, and I think hopefully he's going to be a big difference maker for the Giants in the coming season. I guess in terms of the names going out, I mean, there were losses, but I've got to say not a lot of big names that I think will negatively impact us. But again, just give my GM appreciation for a moment. Kenny Golladay is gone. You know, that is
I'm sure he's still skulking around the stadium somewhere.
So he's out. So I mean, that'd been a lot of dead money for the Giants for some time, and I think you were counting, I think, in the 7 figures how much we're paying him per catch. So that's the end of that chapter.
I'm loving the I'm fully convinced that the Giants are just taking all of these wide receivers, cutting them up, and trying to build one functional wide receiver. It's like more slot receivers than there is in slots in Vegas. Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's been as you say, GM appreciation. It's been, I suppose you would say, more of a maintenance off season in terms of managing those contracts, keeping the kind of the core of the team whole, and adding pieces rather than big splashes. Although Darren Waller was a splash, to be fair.
Yeah.
What about your draft, though? What were your thoughts about the Giants draft this year?
Yeah, so I think pretty solid draft. I think that's been the take in the Giants off season. So as we've already identified, I think wide receiver was really the major position in need coming into the draft. But obviously, in comparison to probably the last 5 years or so, Giants haven't had a decent season last year, picking much later on in the first round. So first rounder we actually picked up was Deontay Banks, corner who, big 6'2", solid corner, can hopefully go toe to toe with some of the big targets in the division. That's going to be really important for the Giants because although we're kind of middle of the pack in pass D, but I think one of the areas we really struggled was getting those turnovers. We only had 6 total ints for the entire season, which tied with, I think, the Raiders for last in the NFL. So I think he is going to be an important addition. Moving on from that, in the second round with John Michael Schmitz at centre, who seems to be a solid pickup. So some are saying the top centre, others number 2, but certainly just adding that extra piece to the offensive line, which has slowly been getting upgraded over the past few years. And then I've got to say that the one that's actually really got me excited is our third rounder, Jalen Hyatt, the wide receiver at Tennessee. So 72nd overall pick, but certainly he's got a bag full of confidence.
Fast.
He is fast. This is a guy who's got hitting those 50-yard plus plays. I think he had 7 of his 8 touchdowns last year went for over 50 yards. Really going to be that home run threat that the Giants need at the position, not just to open up the passing game, but actually just to clear out the box of it for the likes of Saquon and boost that running game. So, one that's really excited for me. And obviously, I think through the later rounds with a nice pickup to add some back at depth at running back as well. But certainly from the first 2 days, those are the key additions.
Yeah, Jalen Hyatt's a great pick. He's got some of those highlights that he is a highlight reel wide receiver. You just, where are you going? I'm just throwing this really far, and I hope he's the fastest one out there.
Brian, can I just ask Gav a personal question before we go? Gav, see, I don't want to spoil us here. Is your player that we're going to discuss later a crush at a linebacker, or is it someone else?
It's someone else.
Right. No, the reason I want to ask is someone who coming out of last year's draft really interesting. I mean, I've never seen a lot of them last year. What is you expecting this year out of Kayvon Thibodeau?
I think that we're going to need a big kick on from him. Had a good rookie year, but I think one of the weaknesses that we actually saw in the Giants, and really what killed us in the playoffs, was the run game. Eagles ran all over us. 268 yards is the most ever given up by a Giants D against the run. They were 27th against the rush all year last year. So I think obviously we want to see K1 get after the quarterback, but certainly we're going to need him and the linebacking core to really step it up against the run.
Cheers.
It's always a trick with these players that they need to step into multiple roles. You know what I mean? You need to make that call. But yeah, you can't be having a run deal as that. Says a Browns fan. Right, okay. So looking ahead, what do you see as the big improvement that the Giants need this year? You know, you made it to the off season. Made it to the off season. Made it to the post season last year. Weren't there for a huge amount of time, but you acquitted yourselves reasonably well until you ran into the Eagles. What do you need to be able to really hang with teams like the Eagles?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've already touched on that. So, I mean, in terms of the Russian defense, 27th against the run and giving up over 250 yards to the Eagles, that needs to be fixed. But probably to just add a different angle to that, the offense has got to become more dynamic. I mean, we, on the ground did really well, 4th overall. Saquon really getting his groove back. But in terms of passing yards, 27th overall. Daniel Jones was the 5th most sacked quarterback in the league last year. Now, admittedly, part of that I think is good coaching. The turnovers were right down last year. He only had 5 ints. 3 fumbles given away. So, not bad in terms of actually protecting the football, but it's really, and we talked about that with the wide receiver room. It's crowded, but, that's what's happening in coverage. They're not getting separation last year. And that's something that's going to have to change.
Okay. Right. So, what is the thing? We're living in the magic land that everything works and all of these changes happen. What are the games where we're really going to see the Giants shine? What are the games that you look at that slate and you go, that's the week I want to be watching? The week I want to be watching. Well, we talked about, Dan mentioned already how the Cowboys have got a nice run in. The Giants have got a brutal run in. Yes, you do. We have the Eagles in week 16 and week 18.
Wow.
So the Eagles... That's so hard.
We had them twice late last season as well, I'm pretty sure. It wasn't quite that bad, but I think in the last 5 games with the Eagles twice, I think. But that's horrific.
Yeah.
So brutal.
I mean, that's the thing. So the Eagles actually, by ditching us in the playoffs, they actually became the first team ever to beat the Giants 3 times in the same season. And that's, I think the Giants have got to be looking at that, thinking it's late in the season, not expecting to sweep the Eagles, but you've got to be thinking you've got to pick 1 from 2. It's going to be a competitive division, and you're probably going to need to pick up a result in one of those 2 games. Maybe the Eagles being a strong team, they're already in the postseason by that point. But Giants have got to be looking at that and thinking, we've got the Rams, I think, is the week 17 game. You really want to be winning 2 out of those last 3.
It's always a sad day, but when you're sat there saying, right, if we're really lucky, the team we're playing in week 18 will already have the number 1 seed, and as such, they're going to rest everyone, and then we'll get an easy win. It's never a good look back. I understand it. Right, okay. Right, we are drawing towards the end, gentlemen, but Gav, it comes to you to tell us who, and you've already thrown Dan. He was expecting a totally different man, but who is going to crush it for the Giants this year? Well,
when I did the FC pod, I was really safe, so I'm actually going to flip things around, and I've already talked to him about it already. Jalen Hyatt, third round rookie receiver. It's been a real position in need for the Giants, and as I say, between having that home run threat to open up the passing game, give Danny Dimes someone to drop those deep balls to, but actually to open up the lanes for Saquon as well. I think he is going to have to be a difference maker if we are going to kick on from last season.
Brilliant. First, I think the first rookie pick for somebody that's going to crush it that we've had so far, mate. Love it. And as I say, the highlight reel speaks for itself. Right, okay, gents. We are drawing towards the end. It's time to start putting your name to some predictions for each of these teams. Going to do it the same way we did it when we talked about the AFC East. I'm going to come round each of you. I'm going to want to know what you are projecting these teams' wins and losses are going to be for the year. Then we'll have a wee chat. We'll try and put the division in order and see how many arguments we can have. So, John, you're going to kick us off, mate. Where are the Commanders going to finish this year? Last year it was an 8-1. Do you see it going up or down from there, mate?
I can see it going down.
Oh, what are you calling it?
I see them being probably one of the bottom teams in the NFC.
From 500 to all the way down, one of the worst of the conference. Oh, he's a harsh man.
I've looked at their schedule, Brian, and I've got them as 2-15.
Oh!
Their schedule's horrendous. Their schedule, they're just not.
I was going to be a bit more kinder and give them 4 wins.
Oh, well, there you go, folks. There you go. 4 wins for the Commanders this year. Right, okay. And coming across to you, coming to Dallas, where are the Cowboys landing come year end?
So I spoke earlier on, I think we'll go 5-1 the first 6 games. I think either the 49ers or the Chargers are going to kind of give us a bit of a bloody nose. I also think we'll lose to the Bills and we'll split with the Eagles. So I've got us going 14-3.
14-3. Oh, that would be exactly what the Eagles had last year at the top of the division. On that note, Kev, where are the Eagles landing?
I'm trying to be a realist. I think the schedule's particularly tough. I would be happy with 12-5. That'd be all right for me.
12-5, right? So it's again certainly a title or a total that's going to top most divisions in the league. Right then, round us off, Gav. Where are the Giants going to finish? What is the scores and the doors going to be?
Well, I was going to say 10-7, but given we're 9-7-1 last year, I think we need to be asking for more than just not tying with the the Redskins, the Commanders. So I'm going to be going 11-6.
11-6, right? Okay, now we're going to do this one to wind us off, guys. We're going to try and put the division order. I feel there could be some contention here, and I might need to take votes. Kev, I'm going to assume boldly that you think that your Eagles are going to top the division. Dan, I'm also going to assume that you feel your Cowboys are going to top the division. So you two don't get a vote. Gavin, you two get to decide.
I agree with Kev. I've got the Eagles at 12-5. I've put down looking at the Eagles schedule. I've went 12-5 for the Eagles as well.
Ooh, right, Gav, I'll come to you first, mate. Who do you think is going to top the? I'm going to assume that you think it's going to be one of them two topping it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I think that the Super Bowl hangover is real, for the losing teams. Having said that, Eagles are a well-run franchise. We've already kind of given out a credit to Howie. I think, there probably will be a bit of a backslide from last year, but I still think they'll take the division.
What about yourself, John? Where do you land on it? Who's going to take a title between the Eagles and the Cowboys?
I still see the Eagles being the dominant force in that division, even with the Super Bowl hangover. I think the pieces added from Georgia are going to, I think, be really crucial for them as well. So
there you go. You've heard it here first, gentlemen. Dan, you're outvoted. You've been slid into second place. Fly Eagles fly, number 1 in the East. Then, do you know what, Gav?
That was awfully convenient. That was awfully convenient that they both picked the Eagles, because if they'd have picked one each, you'd have had the deciding vote, Brian.
Yeah, then I'd have had to decide.
The only thing I'm going to say is the Eagles fan himself thinks they'll finish 12-5. So you two think the Cowboys will finish less than 12-5?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, when you said you were going to finish 14-3, I think we'll win the division, and I don't think we'll get a record that good. But I suppose I've not paid particular attention to the Cowboys schedule. So maybe they might have it a bit easier than us, and maybe they might pick up the wins. But I don't see it.
That's because you don't look at lesser teams, Kev. You don't look at lesser teams.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so we're gonna call it. And then, do we have any dispute with the bottom end? Do we think it will be? So we're gonna say Eagles, Cowboys, and then would we agree that we think it will wind up being Giants, Commanders?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose you'd expect me to throw the challenge in here, but I think the thing is the Giants last year had quite a nice little season, but the one spot where they really let themselves down was in the division. They were 1-4-1 last year. I can't see them being as bad as that this year, even if it's 3-3, 4-2. I mean, as I say, Eagles beat us 3 times last year, but I think they've got to be looking to be at least kind of splitting the difference with the division rivals next year, and that's hopefully going to bump the win tally up just that little bit.
Maybe a bit of a tussle for 2. Right. Well, that is going to wind us up, folks. That is our chat all the way through the NFC East. Hope you've enjoyed the show tonight, folks. Remember, you can find us on Twitter, you can find us on Twitch, you can find us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts at. Thank you very much for sticking with us, folks. We are going to be back, and we're going to be bringing you the rest of the divisions around the league. I've been Brian. The guys have been the crew. It has been fantastic. The season is nearly here, guys. We have got pre-season games this week. And until we have got the full season back, the crew will get you